This week, we talk about how Dale and I divided and conquered, jealousy in the workplace, and new discoveries with our branding team. Check it out.
Welcome to another episode of the Straight Shot Post Podcast. I'm your host, Frank De Arroyo. As always, my co-host, Grace Santos, is with me. She's recovering from a cold today, so, if she needs to take a breath or is a little nasally, please show her some love in the comments. Yes. So let's jump right into it.
Let's just say that our weeks were really separate this week. It started really separate, and we're finally kind of worked together today, but not really. And I do have to say, I had a crying moment this week. No one made me cry, for clarity, but I guess I started my week with Mondays are crazy here because we have a 1 hour meeting in the beginning of the day where it's called our What I Learned, where we share something that we learned that week. And it's a team bonding exercise that is really valuable for a remote company because when else are you going to just talk about your life with your coworkers? Cooler talk? It's not locker room talk. It's cooler talk.
Water cooler. Yeah.
Water cooler talk. There we go. Anyway,
kitchen
so
conversation, etc., etc.
There's
office stuff,
Yeah. And there's that for an hour. And then we were onboarding our illustrator. And then there's just so many meetings. I don't even know. And I think my Monday was just filled with contracts, getting people set up, answering people's questions about money, just being the money person. And then, I think it was I was waiting for the day to end. We were in a meeting at the very end, we're doing a studios review, reviewing what we're going to do for...
This is our new company.
Our new company, what we're going to start doing for studios. And then I think I was in the call, but I had muted myself and turned off my camera, and I was just waiting for us to finish so that we do our normal recap. But then I literally went away for a little bit, and then it came back, and then everyone was gone, and I was like, oh, I didn't even say bye to anyone. So then I got sad.
I did not know that. That's so funny.
So that sounds so ridiculous.
Hey, but that's our company though.
So then I was really sad. And then I was like, why am I so irrationally sad about this? Because that's happened before. Also, me coming from a cold might have something to do with, sure. I just felt down, in general. I was really sniffly. And then I cried, and then I made it more sniffly. And then on Tuesday, it was funny because I think, is that the day we met with the bureau?
We met with them twice this week, and I think it was Tuesday.
Yeah, it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday. I think so. The first day I was isolated, just running money.
The Bureau is our branding agency, by the way, just for people who need context. They were working with us to develop all sorts of branding tools for our company before we really get going marketing. This is on the Straight Shot Post side, trying to, build our post-production company to help you guys out there.
Yeah. And so on Tuesday, we met with them to do a little bit of... What is it that we did?
Landscape analysis, I believe.
Yeah, where we learned a lot about, our competition in the marketplace and such. And then we had 2 quarterlies. And so that day was mostly filled with talking to people. And then I was like, this is fun.
Quarterly reviews, FYIs. Yeah.
Oh, quarterly reviews. Yeah. With the employees. And so I was like, yeah, this is what I'm about. So opposite from yesterday, just sitting and adding numbers together. And then the rest of the week was, a mix of the 2 extremes. But I mean, I had a moment where I was like, oh my God, this is what Dale has been talking about, where I see it happening, where it's we're branching off and you're going to start the studios branch. And then I'm going to stay at Straight Shot Post. I don't know. But it was scary. That's probably why I cried. I don't know. I was I'm scared. Actually, I thought that's why I cried. But then yesterday I had therapy and I realized it was totally different. We investigated and I was like, oh, I'm crying about my dad. Okay, what? I don't know how I ended up here, but okay, sure. But anyway,
it's always some. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but,
I know.
I guess it's important to recognize, I think we're quite simple creatures, actually, but it's more that we're complex mainly by the world. The world is pretty complex. There's lots of different stimulus and lots of different things going on. Because I know that you've experienced me saying, I feel X way. And then you're like, what happened? And then I'm like, I don't know yet. But I know that something is happening. And I know that I need to figure it out so that I can fix it. But I'm very comfortable with myself to know hey, dude, you're going through a thing right now, oddly enough. So don't do anything. Don't make any decisions. Figure out why you're going through the thing first. Because I think that's what's caused me a lot of mistakes in the past is I might feel a way and then I might immediately act on that thing and it would end up being the wrong thing half the time.
Yeah. So imagine if I had lashed out and been how dare you all leave the meet without me or something like that. Like, but actually I should be going to talk to my dad about my feelings, and all the love to him. It was just something, you know, one of those therapy things where it's like deep rooted stuff. I don't know. Anyway, where was I?
That's good, man.
Oh,
I'm pro therapy. You know that.
I was talking about how like we branched off, and then like, yeah. So it's weird because it made me sad, where I was like, oh my God. Cause I'm still in the background of all the meetings. So I'm still hearing a lot of what's going on. And I'm just like there, like creating our budget, crunching numbers. And then in the background, I hear everyone like, oh, well, we started writing our first kids book. And so I hear the reviews of it and it sounds so fun. And I'm like, why am I here doing the numbers? I want to do that.
Honest to God, but when you said that, by the way, that was the first time that I had ever, it was very off the cuff, but she was like, man, I'm jealous. And I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, this is the thing I'm the most afraid of, right? Is like, you know, we have to do our thing. Like we have to have pride in like whatever. Cause I'm like, I get it. I totally get that. But like, I don't, you know, it's not like it was such a off the cuff line but I have never heard you say anything like that. And I was like,
that I'm jealous.
Yes. You're like, damn, I'm jealous. Like you guys are having all the fun over there. And you meant it lightheartedly, but I also was just like, what? Oh shit. Yeah. So you know, my ears perked up for sure.
Well, I don't know if this makes you feel better, but I feel like I'm a pretty jealous person. Like I often feel jealous. I guess maybe that's the first time I've said it.
About you. Yes.
I felt jealous many times, but I just don't say anything. But what's funny about why I felt jealous was that, like, you know, today we were listening to like the directors roundtable. We're like one of those, a Vanity Fair, I don't even know. Yeah. And then I was hearing all these directors talking about like their backgrounds and coming up into being a director, and I'm like, I'd never want to be a director. Like, that's not me. I mean, imagine like cut to 50 years later, I'm like directing, but
don't be surprised.
I don't want to direct. I don't like that. And so I was like, I don't want to do that. And yet, like, why am I jealous of what's going on over there then? You know, like I was weirded out. I'm like, because if you were to tell me like you're going to go do this and direct, I'd be like, ooh. So I don't know.
This is funny.
That was interesting.
What we can touch on here is we just put out a clip from an earlier podcast where we're talking about the grass is always greener. And
yeah.
Internally, there was a conversation because I basically say that, you know, you might be happy at your job. I'm reiterating what I said in an earlier episode, by the way, but you know, you might be happy with your job, but then you go on Instagram and you see somebody with their like latte and their, you know, all these special things about their job, and then immediately you start thinking about what you could have, what other jobs you could have. And basically they were nervous that I would come off like I'm saying, like I'm telling people to settle, you know, and to like, I don't know, try to get more work out of the employees or something, when really all I was trying to say was, if you are happy, then why waste time on, like, I guess if you could be happier, and then like it's so limited in the context. Like, you need to know yourself. You need to be self-aware is what I'm saying, right? Because the context is limited. It's like, yes, you might get a free latte, but like, what else is going on? And, you know, what is it et cetera? Like, what are the other things about it? So I think it's just all about being self-aware. And I think that there's a definitely with everything, media in general, like the grass is always greener vibe. And I think it's obviously you just have self-control and really understand what you're doing. Again, don't act. Really think about it and try to understand what the context is before you make decisions is basically what it comes down to. Because I think what you're doing is smart, like as in like you can have an initial reaction, but it sounds like from everything you're saying, you're thinking about it before you do anything, right?
Mm-hmm. My fear is me just saying the offhanded thing about like, oh, I'm jealous was me doing something, but I like looking back, I'm like, I hope that didn't do anything.
No, I mean,
okay.
Not with me. I wouldn't jump to any conclusions either. I'm just very perceptive, that's all. As in like, well, that's a new thing. But I also didn't spend really any time with you this week. So like I heard the thing, I went back off to whatever I was doing, and then it's not like I had a chance to even talk to you about it until now, which is interesting because my week was very much getting new people started, working on new processes. It's very, very, I do think that lots of parts of building a business are very boring to some. They're like, if you just like, the days are just like meetings and meetings and meetings, processes. We need to build systems. I want checklists. It needs to be repeatable. Like it's not, you know, I wonder what people think it is, but at least the way we roll. Maybe. Or it's like, you know what they probably think it is? They probably think it's selling a lot. You know, like that bit like, yeah, this is my company, and like closing deals with like clients. Do you know what I mean?
I guess people like that, yeah.
That's like what I think they see is like the Wolf of Wall Street or something, which like there are sellers and stuff. But at least when you're like actually CEO, or like in our case, because we do operations here too, it's like so much of it is actually, there's like two big things. One is how do you replace yourself? And in a creative business like ours, that's very strict about its process, which we'll talk about later in this episode, like 100%. That's what you're trying to do, is take my process and translate it to other people so that I don't have to physically be everywhere to make sure that it's coming out the way that our, you know, that's right for our company. And then the other half is just like literally dealing with people. So it's like building processes that make this thing consistent, and then dealing with the people at the company with whatever problems they have. And then my day is gone. And these first 2 weeks of the year have been, for me, like lightning fast. Like every hour of the day has been taken up, except for my long lunch break. Thank God I take a long lunch break, like, you know, and then I'm still doing work after work, which is good. It feels good to have other stuff, but I'm realizing like, and I don't know if other people have this, at different times of day, I'm better equipped for different types of work.
Totally.
But thank God for ChatGPT for making it a lot easier for me to keep going as a powerful tool. But like writing has been hard at night. It just requires a lot of brain power, and I don't really have it anymore. So I'm working on that. That's like one of the big things I was working on this week, is trying to get because there was, I would say almost every night I did work like after work, which I already work a good amount. So I think that's one of the more interesting things from this week. But yeah, and it's also something that we kind of know at this point, which is that certain activities at the company, they're somewhat seasonal. So like it's the beginning of a quarter, so it's a lot of HR. And for Grace, it's the beginning of a year, taxes. So it's a lot of taxes. But
taxes, guys.
Yes, but it is temporary. And like once you get through that, like for me, that's the hardest part, because I'm an introvert. So a lot of talking and a lot of new people starting and a lot of new things happening. That's where I'm most needed. I'm hoping by, you know, in a few months from now, things are a lot more streamlined and I have a lot more quote unquote free time. I'm sure we'll fill it with other things. But right now the demand is high, and it's something that I think I'm starting to see patterns year over year on, which is like the beginning of the year, there's new things usually. And therefore, when there are new things, I have to be there to spearhead it, typically. So yeah, which, talking about new things.
The Bureau
of Small Projects. Shout out. Listen, kindred spirits, if this podcast ever does go anywhere, if anyone, like, look these guys up if you need branding. If you like us, you'll like them. That's the best way to
it's like they say, like a same spirit, different font. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow, that was good. I like that.
Yeah. It's like the same methods. I don't even know how to describe it.
Well, similar values. That's why. So like for
values.
example, and it's actually funny because we were joking about this on the call. So, you know, our core values: efforts, transparency, empathy, and simplicity. Right. They also have transparency as one of their core values, but then they have kindness. So it's kind of funny to see where we're similar and where we're different. And I just kept laughing like, oh, thank God we don't have kindness as one of ours. And it wouldn't work because it conflicts with the problem solving part of it all. It conflicts sometimes. We're generally nice guys. Don't want to give the wrong impression, but you know, the point is sometimes if you want to be honest with somebody, you have to tell them the truth. And sometimes the truth isn't fun. And sometimes you have to be the bad guy. And that's actually the right decision for the project.
But that's what then the one of the person at the Bureau was saying, like, yeah, we totally agree. And she was saying that when she has to deliver bad news, she, you know, like sometimes delivering that bad news is the kind thing to do because it's the transparent thing to do, but there's a way to do it with kindness.
Correct. Whereas we don't really have to do it necessarily with
internally we don't do it with kindness. Internally, we don't do it with kind. I mean, not that we're like slandering each other, but we just do it the most fast, like blunt, efficient way. But with our clients, I think we're kind.
We're professional.
We're professional. Yeah. I mean, it's not like you look at them. They're so nice, but
correct. Like I don't think somebody would be like, oh, Dale, nicest guy on the planet. You know, no, they're not, and that's okay. I'm cool. I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that because they should all say like, which they did because we actually had, I guess, client feedback. They went out and got some client feedback for us, which I want to do more of. But it's nice when it's a third party because you could be a little bit more honest. Like she was saying, like sometimes the clients do give negative feedback, which can be very valuable. Ours are generally happy with us.
But I'm wondering, I'm like, did we only get like 2 clients to talk about it?
Yeah. What are you going to do? What, you know? So, I mean, realistically, it is actually very valuable to hear about what they value in us. They didn't say kind. They said we hit all our deadlines.
Right.
We're very flexible and we're willing to work with them and solve problems. That's true. And it's such an interesting thing to talk about kindness in general, but we're talking about it in a business context, in an engineering and building a company kind of context. And really, it's like being a kind person is different than like forcing yourself to do things the kind way. That's the way that I look at it. Like, okay. Yes. As in, and she kind of was saying like in different ways, like it's like the barrier to entry. If you're not if you're a yes, and I don't know, I guess I'll bleep that. You guys insert whatever expletive you'd like there. Okay. So if you're you won't be here. That's pretty much
straight
it.
shot.
Yeah. Right.
Oh.
Like that's it. So
Yeah.
that's why it's
true.
like, no, I'm not telling people don't have to, people are nice and you know, they're just good people. They don't have to try to. How does it actually show up? I mean, it shows up mainly because I think kindness is mainly a language focused thing. And that's why specifically I don't include it, because I'd rather teach you guys to be like language agnostic so that I can because like one of the things we do at the company is one of the things that we do at the company is like, I'll just video chat somebody. I'll just send them a random Google Meet. So imagine you're the boss. Imagine the CEO randomly Google chatting you in the middle of the day. Like, how would you feel? Probably not a little scared, right?
I never thought about that. Because that's all I've known, but like that is scary. Yeah.
Right. Of course. Like imagine like the first time an intern gets like a call from me, they're like, oh, what did I do? Right. Like, but
yeah,
that's kind of what I mean. Instead of writing the paragraph before it, hi, hope you're available. Just wanted to chat with you about, you know what I mean? Like that's the difference. It's just, I don't have to do that because people assume they're getting trained to not have an emotion about me sending it and only have the emotion when I'm like, I have bad news or I have good news is kind of the difference. So that's why we actually prioritize speed of communication and efficiency of communication over the style of communication. And that's why like, I guess we don't put kindness as a core value because we know that it doesn't look kind for me to just tell you come. That's it. One word.
But I have to say, we do have a lot of kindness. And I liked when you said to the interns, I promise everyone here is nicer than me. I was like, that was a good one.
Hey. So yeah, you know, I think that it's a good, healthy environment. Obviously, if people are happy, we don't have a big issue with turnover, you know, and we're a very young company. So I take that as a good sign.
Yeah.
Right. So, but it goes to show you there's many different ways to do it. And it was fun to talk with them about learning a bit about how their company operates in ours. And I honestly just feel like we made the right choice because they do the work and they know how to communicate it to us. And because we have similar communication, I think things are moving smoothly. You know, we did learn a bit about it. I guess I'll say this because this could be very important for other CEOs. And other people starting creative businesses. That was a huge revelation. When I started the company, I was trying to figure out what problems we're solving, right? I was a freelancer working in agencies, seeing the problems that agencies had with freelancing. And then I started my company. And what I think was so valuable about this is they kind of made me realize that like, you're a company, so your other competition really are other editing companies. And I had never thought about that.
It sounds like, it feels like a duh thing, but like when
course.
you consider like your background coming from freelance and that's all you saw, like that makes sense.
And also what I was trying to do.
Which was like...
I was trying to be a better freelance solution. Yeah.
Right. And it's funny because like I remember like all of these companies always asking us who's your competition and we never knew. And even when I Google, I'm not trained to like do market research and shit. So like I was just like Googling and I didn't find much. And then when she did the market research for us, it was like 1.6 billion.
There are to frame it for everybody, there are 1.6 billion web pages that are tagged or keyworded or have the words full service post-production company in it. So it basically means it's a super, at least from that sense, like a very flooded market, which we know that everybody thinks that they're an editor and that they can do this stuff. And that's fine, but it's very good to know. Like, technically, that's what we're up against. And so we need to now really, as they call it, find what makes us better and different. And that's the journey, which luckily I think we started landing on some stuff on our second meeting on Thursday with them.
It was really informative. Like, I feel like we had between our 2 meetings in the week, like we did go through, I don't know, not a spiral, but we like thought through a lot and I guess landed. Where did we land? What makes us different?
Well, that's what they're about to go and do. We gave them everything we got, and now they're gonna present to us a proper value proposition. Where we're landing is it's in our process, the puzzle piece storytelling. Like, that's what makes us different and better. And what puzzle piece is, I guess, which is the hard thing, is putting all of that into words that will make sense to a potential client, so that, and she's like, it's going to be tone, like the tone of it. She kept talking about that a lot, is as far as how we talk about it is going to be important. So, I definitely felt good about downloading everything. They also said we gave them one of the best, they give you a questionnaire to fill out. And she was like, you guys gave us so much. This is one of the best we've gotten. And I was like, I don't know. I keep coming back to these moments. And so if you're listening, guys, for the love of God, just start putting in effort. And I think things will get easier for you. It's they were like, people don't do this. They just don't put that many words in it. They just don't write that much. I'm like, what?
How are you going to pay this money and not want to get the most out of it?
Yeah, or not at least try to, we tried, we did. We were like, what about this? Maybe that. And then I said, Grace, put it all down and let them do with it what they may. And so, when we heard that, it just kind of kept coming back to this thing where effort is so underrated. And of course, we're hopefully going to help them do their job better,
I feel like effort, I just had this thought, is kind of almost embarrassing, or I don't know, people don't want to admit to giving effort, right? They want to just be like, oh, I'm just smart, I'm talented, I landed here. Yeah, so
cool guys don't look at explosions.
I've never heard of that.
What?
Okay. I've never heard of that.
I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna be like, cool guys are super pumped and excited when they see their explosion go off. That's how I roll.
Yeah. Well,
so yeah.
But you gave the example because when we were having these meetings, trying to give them as much information into what our process is, and you gave the example of coming back to Sophie's film, and I want you to talk about that. Weekly visiting Sophie's film.
It's funny because she has no idea. I think that it would be really great, this is me talking to my producer here, if we clipped all the times we talked about her film just to see how it evolves from the beginning to the end of that. I wonder what that story is after all of it. But
for those of you listening for the first time today, it's Sophie. Sophie is my friend who also used to work here. She worked here. She interned here.
She got paid sometimes.
Both. And she's doing a thesis film at school in her last year of school, and she asked me to produce it. So I am, as a little practice to see what that's like. And I always have some updates to bring on that because I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, she's she's a mentee of mine, just to keep it simple. So it's she's a mentee. She's been here, and what's fun is that because she's at NYU, my former, the school I graduated from too. It's fun to see how my ideology has evolved from there and how much it clashes with what she's learning. And that's just fun to sort of test ideas, two competing sort of philosophies, I guess, on things. But yeah, describing what we do here, we call it puzzle piece storytelling. It's a very powerful framework that, of course, you're going to see us develop and figure out the best way to communicate it. But basically, it's a reverse engineering style of storytelling, which is I've just gotten so much pushback on it over the years and people telling me that's not how you're supposed to do things. But I was explaining to the Bureau a couple of examples, and I'll kind of give some examples and then take it into how it applied on this funny story about this film. But basically, I'm good at pattern recognition. So what started to happen over time is I would recognize patterns in these stories, and then it made me a lot faster because I was very good at isolating what I needed to use my brain power on. So I was only isolating it to right now I'm focusing on the bites, right now I'm focusing on the images, just the B-roll, just the music, just this and that, and still have a sense of what the whole was going to look like because I had already figured out what the piece was going to be before I started, which I think a lot of people can already see why some people might find it problematic, because they're romantic about telling stories. So for example, and I'd love for people to let me know how they feel about this in the comments. When I work on a documentary, a nonfiction piece, I do not watch down the entire interview. I do not look at all the footage before I start editing, which for a lot of people is blasphemy. But obviously, it also works. A lot of people also give me pushback on telling stories that I don't have a personal connection to, or I'm not a part of that community. I think this is a big conversation in general. And I'm a big believer that if you're a great storyteller, if you're a great craftsman, then you can tell any story so long as you do it correctly. Like, you can tell the story, it might be bad. I'm talking about making it a good story. Yeah, if you're a great storyteller, then you can theoretically should be able to tell any story. It just might be harder for you than somebody who already has a background in that area, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't make just as good of a film. There are obviously filmmakers who are eclectic. Kubrick told many different, like a lot of people now have been able to break out of that and tell different kinds of stories. Spielberg is another one who has kind of almost touched every genre, including animated films and stuff. So that's kind of what I look at. And like my two most successful narrative films is an LGBT film and a film about a Mexican trans woman in New York. Both incredibly indie, incredibly slice of life, like the most artsy of the kind of movies. Went to Sundance, Concussion went to Sundance in 2013, not the one with Will Smith. That one was bought by Weinstein, of all people, played at the Angelica. This is the dream of anybody going to indie film, and especially if you're in New York, is to play at the Angelica. I, got to do that. It was lovely. And then in 2019, I had an Audience Award winner at South by. So it's like, clearly it can work. And it can work. And then I just found out recently too, I worked on a film, American-ish, which is it's a rom-com that's all about like three Muslim sisters, like Pakistanis, right? Clearly, all three of those films I have zero, like not even, connection to, but was able to, and that was just bought by Sony Pictures, by the way, Grace. Roy texted
no
me.
way.
Yeah. So
congrats.
Thank you. And that's kind of where it's just like, yeah, so clearly if you are good at telling stories, you should be able to help people translate, from one medium to another. And there's pushback on everything, but that's sort of what this framework is designed to do, is to help you prioritize and focus in the right areas. But because we're telling stories in such a different way, it kind of rubs some people the wrong way who get into it for I think what is more of the narcissistic side, which is fine. If you're an artist and it's the way you express yourself, do you? But like, it's been interesting to work with the Bureau to try to figure out how we can sort of dissect this thing and put it down. And so we were trying to talk about some of the values that it gets you. Speed ends up being one of the big proponents here. And oddly enough, creativity, like open-mindedness, ends up becoming very, very much a part of the process, which I think people would find ironic when they understand how analytical it is and how like math-based it is basically. But what happened is that Sophie, which we got to find out what's going on there, but they want me to read the script, right? So just to be clear, I have not read the script of this movie yet. Grace says, hey, I think they're going to want you to read the script and, do your thing, tear it apart, give them the feedback they need. I said, no problem. The next day I see, I think it's a LinkedIn or an Instagram post because they're having like a GoFundMe or something like that, which by the way, you can link that if you want, Grace, if you, or whatever.
Yeah.
But, they're trying to raise some money for their student film. And so there's like a 2-sentence log line or something about it. Something about this is all I got. Something about breaking the rules and a mother-daughter thing and a religious thing about Passover or something. That's literally basically what I got from it. And then I sat down with Grace and I said, hey, Grace, is this what the movie's about? And then I basically proceeded to tell her quite accurately what the plot was going to be about. And then was like, if that's the case, then these are some of the problems that you're going to have. Then she was just like, you're answering all the questions that I was going to have for you. You're saying things that I've been thinking. And then I said, and then if these are your problems, then here's 2 or 3 solutions. And, she was just like, it was like, I don't know, 10, 15. I mean, we dug deep for a while, but like without the script. But it was more trying to dissect the director and what she might feel and what the producers might feel and how you'd play out different scenarios to get you to different solutions. At the end of the day, it's funny, but like basically, because of pattern recognition and I guess at this point experience of doing this kind of system, like I don't need to read the script even to figure out what's going on and at least give them some big pointers and solve some of the big problems that they have.
And I don't know how people feel about like watching you tear things apart and, not tear things apart in a negative way, but like break it down, and find your solutions from there. But I'm absolutely love it watching it. And it's so satisfying to my brain. And I don't know if that's like just like a general, like watching that happen is like, wow, it's like so cool. Or in this case, it felt like because I had some of these problems with the script, but I didn't know how to pin it down and what they were.
For context, how long have you been working on this script?
A few months now. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, as we're trying to illustrate to our branding people, like, the power of puzzle piece storytelling, this is the kind of stuff that's hard to explain, where it's like they've been working on the script for probably, if it was the beginning of the school year, September, October, at least 5 months they've been working on this script, and in 10 minutes I can,
feedback.
Yeah.
And he didn't
Without
even read
reading
the
it.
script yet. Yeah. No, but like, I don't know what it is, but I mean, I'd like to believe that it's, all the things that I'm learning here, and they're like kind of embedding. And so like, I can feel when something's wrong, but like, it's just a feeling, and I really can't do anything about it. But yeah.
Not yet.
Which is annoying.
You get there. You'll get there.
But it's like an itch, and then you scratch that itch when you break it down. So yeah, it was really informative, and I don't even know what's gonna happen. You don't even need it. I mean,
I will.
Of course, you'll read the script, but like,
I
think
mean,
the notes are there.
the story problems have to be. These are the bigger story problems have to be addressed before we start worrying about a line of dialogue. And again, this is where people do get messed up. And every time I do a consultation, it's the same thing. They think they're 80% there with the script. And then I'm like, a lot of this dialogue is bad, but honest to God, like, the story needs work. And you guys are getting stuck in a cool line or a cool piece of dialogue or a cool moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because
the whole thing.
It's like, okay, I've never written a script, so I'm just going to keep saying they, but like, they, as in the students, will come to you after
it's
they
not,
feel like
it's
they're
not
80.
just students, by the way. This is professionals too. Yeah.
No, but I was going to talk about like Sophie and like other students, because they've gotten feedback. She's been getting feedback from professors. And so that makes sense why, I mean, I would understand why she feels like she's like 80% there. 'Cause she's showing it to all her professors, doing a bunch of changes. The script has gone through so much. And then, and I guess, they'll still come to you. And then, I don't know.
Like, to be honest with you, I started thinking about this, and I think I might try to make a video about it at some point. But basically, it's like, we were trying to figure out, because some of the stuff that I was talking about with you is not rocket science. Like, it's not, like, it was easy
I know,
to see.
when you say it, I'm like, duh, yeah, that makes sense. Right.
So then the thing is, you're like, there's no way the professor doesn't see some of the same problems. But I really do think they're held back by the fact that it's, the school system, and they can't really tell them what they think. The reason I say that is because you have to understand a lot of people's first films and student films are very personal. So if a professor is saying this story is bad and there are ways you can make it better, you're also saying your story is bad. And I can easily see how a student's going to go and complain to their parents, like, my professor just told me my life's story is awful. Which, guess what, everybody? If you're not thinking about how the audience is gonna see it, it ends up being bad because you're not good enough to translate it. It's usually a context issue. And that's what I said to Grace. I said, what really happened? Because you could also tell when they're Dear Diary pieces. That's what we call them. It's not bad to do a Dear Diary piece. Literally, we're about to do a Dear Diary piece here at Studios. But as my team can see, when we're working on it, and when we're digging into this piece that is something that happened to me in my personal life, that was a very transformational experience for me, that we're still looking at it as a film for people to be moved emotionally, and the emphasis is on how it's going to affect those people. So like, I'll change things about it. I'll make sure there's the right context or lead you in different, it's a movie, right? So that's what's hard. I think from a professor's perspective. So if you guys want to be creatives out there in general, like, you need to find feedback outside, like somebody that will just, it's not that, right? I say it like it's easy with experience. Honestly, this is why you do internships with small companies and try to get to know the people at the top. If you respect them, that's like the best way to do it. That's another pro internship thing, is like, you might get lucky and find actual real mentorship there. NYU is great. Don't get me wrong. I had a great experience, but like, they're not going to give you that kind of feedback where they're like, I don't care if this happened to you and your mom. It's not hitting. Like, it's just, you're not making, I know how you feel about it, but I don't feel that way about it. And it doesn't matter what you feel about it when it's a movie, like when the movie's done. So I think there's a lot to say about that, but trying to explain this to the bureau and kind of running through these different examples of client interactions we've had where we've solved problems, or narrative issues that have happened where we've solved problems very quickly. Part of why we were able to have so much success on social media last year with our shows, like, they're making me realize things about our process, which I think is really healthy because it's helping me teach it and translate it better at the company. So I really can't wait for the value prop, and I can't wait to see what we do with puzzle piece storytelling as like a as a part of the company story.
The way that I love the Forge, which that's our business coaches. We have a lot of like business coach type people, but yeah, the way that I love the Forge, I love the Bureau in a similar way that it feels like business therapy, where it opens you up and you learn a lot of things. So yeah, I really appreciated that. The Bureau's
super valuable
thing. Yeah.
Super value. And one last thing on the note of teachers, because our producer brought this up the other day, that because we're trying to figure out how to get people good training. Essentially it's kind of like doctors, like they wait for you to make the mistake. So like you go out and you spend all this money on your film, and then they're like, you could have done this better, you could have done that better, what if you considered this? And like, it's true. It's funny because like I wasn't thinking about it until she said it, but it's like, why didn't you just tell me this stuff beforehand, or like have more guidance during the process, And I think it's more impactful on films when you're at a more senior level in school because they're expensive. That's the problem.
Yeah. Is there maybe not enough
I think so. Reps.
Ratio? No, not enough like teacher to student ratio versus time versus like that would take a lot of time.
I thought you meant ratio of projects is what I thought you were.
Oh, no.
So maybe it's both. I mean, no, of course, I can see that, but
a lot of kids to walk through.
But
all that.
I don't know, girl. I'm just throwing it out there. If you told that could have been a 15-minute meeting. So if I had 30 kids, like it really, and that's my only job, like
that's true.
And you're working, by the way, it's like the professor must have read her script 4 or 5 times. I'm not saying anything about her professor, by the way. I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
They could be way better, more experienced than me. We're just simply putting out the fact that we think that there are obvious problems in the script and that's where, that are solvable quickly. And that's all we're trying to just figure that out.
Maybe not like $15,000, $20,000, but like I'm really going off of like what I've learned in my psych classes of like what makes people respond and what makes people like actually learn their lesson. And it's when they suffer.
I'm not
like I've seen the studies.
Okay, hold up, bro. Because I'm not going to disagree in saying that emotions don't play a role. You have to feel things. I firmly agree with that. But they don't have to be real. That's the difference. That's why to talk about our internship program. You want to create an environment where they feel the thing, but there's actually no
You're
stakes.
telling me that doing the whole process of the film and then afterwards being told like you didn't have to do that is the same as not doing that whole process and someone just telling you don't have to do that? Like that's the same pain?
No, what I'm saying is you have them make a film they care about that doesn't matter, that costs no money, so they'll still feel the pain.
Okay.
Yes, but there's actually no real world ramifications for it. Whereas by the time that you're making your thesis and you're putting $20,000 into it, yes, on top of your student loans, that matters.
Okay, so I think the root of what this debate always becomes is actually the money for you then. Because you agree about the pain.
No, it's the stakes. No. It's the stakes.
Or the stakes, sure. The stakes in this case in film school money.
I mean, there's a lot. Of
time.
Yes.
I don't know. Okay.
Emotions. Like, again, if you're interning with us and you mess up my Instagram post, you feel bad, but you don't get fired. You get another shot. But you feel bad. And you know what that feeling is, and you don't want that feeling, so it makes you better.
Yeah. Okay, so we agree there. Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter. And it's not nearly as bad. Like, you felt bad, but it's not as bad as you would feel if you did your first job, messed up, and got fired. That could be, like, crippling. So
what we're arguing here is stakes, not...
I'm talking about stakes, but
Yeah.
But also, I mean, it's just more, look, this is the problem with people, but like, obviously it's just better if I say, hey, Grace, I'm giving you the answer. And then you just said, okay, I'll do that. Like, that's obviously just the best case scenario. But as we're learning, emotions is what dictates action. So
exactly. So
yes,
I don't think,
but I'm not saying that, but there is a better way. That's the debate. You're saying, no, that's the way. That's the best way. I'm like, that's the best way because we are limited. But if we can get through that, if I could just do it all with logic, but imagining it in my head, it's better.
That would require changing like how the majority of people think and see, like in a college setting, that would require most people changing their motivations from emotional things to, like controlling their emotions, and that would be a whole.
I'm not saying it's practical. I'm saying it's
so
ideal.
that's what I'm saying. Like it's not.
No. You're making the claim that you must experience things. That's what you've said in the past. No. You have to go through it, and I'm saying no, you don't. You don't have to.
I mean, you don't have to, but
Exactly.
it's like more. It's more impactful too.
For
and you're like,
people.
no.
No, I'm saying like no. I'm saying you don't have to. Like you don't have to touch the hot stove to learn you shouldn't touch the hot stove.
For me, I did.
Yeah, and you burn yourself. Sucks for you. For me, I didn't, and I never got burned. Which one's better? Like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, this was fun. I mean, look, I'm happy to dig deep and talk about story, and the studios is going to have more to talk about. Maybe we'll share a bit more about our upcoming project, which is going to be a kid's book. We're already in the first draft phase, working on some illustrations and stuff like that, and so maybe we can start dissecting some of our own work, because that could be useful, I think, for people. Let us know what your guys' thoughts are. Let's wrap this bad boy up. I don't know. What do you got for me? Yeah, what's the pro tip? I mean,
another pro tip. Oh my God. Wait. I learned this week. Oh my God. I learned so many things on Excel this week, actually. I was just doing the budget, and I learned
hit him with the pro tip.
If you hit a thing and it's like crazy numbers, and you just like do Control Shift and the dollar, so forward, it'll turn the thing into $sign, because I was having so many troubles with Excel.
Yet again, I don't know what you mean. What do you mean?
Well, like if it's just a number and you do Control Shift 4, it'll put a $sign in front of it, because before I was like, why sometimes
instead of it being
a number,
pure decimals?
just pure decimals. Yeah.
Like
that was a cool one.
Yeah. What was the one that our accountant said too?
Oh, pivot table. I use that too. My gosh, that saved my pivot table. Like getting, so I was trying to add up, because we were doing 1099s, and I'm trying to add up, like have the list of all the contractors we had and their totals of how much they made. So I have like a list of all of the individual payments that every contractor had in 2022, and I export it into Excel, and it's just like a big list. But if you select it all and insert pivot table, it categorizes it for you, and it adds up what each person made. So that was great. Last year I literally spent like days trying to figure this out. I don't know what to do, but
there you go, baby.
Took
that's
like
that's
2
it.
seconds.
Acquire new skills. I'm glad that you have stuff like this to say, because that's the problem, is people don't want to put the work in to figure out how to do it better. So I've been having this big spat with all my project managers who are would rather throw manpower at it, and I'm like, no, figure out the best way to do it before we throw manpower at it.
Your voice saying that is always in my head, because I'm like, I'm just gonna do it the long way this time, because I don't want to figure it out. And I'm like, no, go figure it out, Google it, and then it's so fast.
Yes, good. I'm glad. That makes me very, very happy. Now I'm gonna ask you a question. This one might hurt.
Oh no!
Dogs or cats?
Oh, okay.
I mean, people are very, very, very emotional about this one. Be careful.
Dogs.
Uh-oh. Is there a story to it? Why are you a dog person?
Why am I a dog person? Dude, do you not know my past?
No.
Of dogs?
No.
Oh my God. Let me start off this by saying that I also really love cats, but if I had to choose, it's dogs. But I was the biggest dog person. Since I was 5, I've been begging for a 3-month-old female golden retriever. That was my dream. And my parents never let me have one. They're like,
I'm
you're not
so
responsible.
Sorry. You specifically wanted it to be delivered at 3 months old?
I wanted the dog at 3 months old, yeah.
You were 3 months? No, you know what I mean. You wanted a 3-month-old dog, not a 4-month-old dog, not a 2-month-old dog.
No, a 3-month-old dog, because I had done so much. Yeah. Well, I'll get to that. When I was 5, I was just like, I want a dog. But around like age, I don't even know what it was, like 10, I was like 3-month-old female golden retriever, and I was obsessed. And my piano teacher had this little like devil chihuahua. But I was like, I'll take care of it for free. And I would take care of it in the holidays when she'd go away, and I took care of my friends' dogs, and I was obsessed. And in middle school, I remember I wrote a whole like 100-page book about how to take care of a dog. And I got so obsessed with the dog whisperer and Caesar Milan. And for my birthday, my parents took me to see Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer. And he signed my book. I had a book. I read all his books, and I learned how to train a dog. I did not have a dog. I would go to the dog run and hang out with the dogs and like get to know the local dogs. I was obsessed. And they still didn't let me have one. I was like, I have the perfect plan, and I'm so dedicated. I will like, it was my dream to grow up with a dog. They still never let me have one. And then, I wanted 3 months because I had done research, and I was like, that's probably the best age for bonding and to like have them learn my tricks. And like, I wanted it from a breeder and all that stuff. And then I never got the dog. And then I moved to the city, and then now I'm like, I've taken care of dogs here, and I'm like, it's so much harder. I used to live in the suburbs in Jersey, so that was easy. So yeah, now I don't want a dog, but I still love them. So that is my history into why I'm a dog person.
Blew my mind. That blew good question. My mind. That's crazy.
Yeah. Isn't it everyone's like, yo, like you should have just gotten one at that point. I was obsessed.
The problem is you want a big one, so if you're in the city, you can't really get a small one,
Yeah. I do want a big one.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Okay. So for my question, I have cards. We were at my restaurant on Christmas. They just gave us little like cards to ask questions. So I was like, I need this for the podcast because I struggle. If talent and money were not factors, what job would you do?
It's got to be this one, right?
CEO?
But if talent and money were taken care of, I was as talented as possible. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if it wasn't filmmaker, because technically I am pursuing the thing that I would do, it would probably be in a rock band. I was a drummer. Yeah.
Wait. So filmmaker as in director or like any kind? Any you do at all or?
Yeah, no, it'd probably be directing, but I just feel like, again, it's funny because what that question isn't talking about is also like, I get, like it's not about even how much money you need to do it or how much money you get from it. But like the thing with filmmaking is like, because what I want to do, I want to have impact, like I want to be able to reach a bigger audience. So that's where like, it's hard for me to specifically say filmmaking. Because like when I was growing up, yes, because that was the, going to the theater, that was the hallmark of, entertaining people through stories. Whereas like the reason why I'm shifting things now is because that's changed. So it's hard for me to say filmmaker because like if I was born now and could do anything, it'd probably be like Mr. Beast, right? I think would be like YouTuber, but of narrative stories, not necessarily what he does, right? Which is what we're going to be attempting to do. So if it wasn't storyteller, blanket term, like without worrying about the medium, it'd be the medium that had, allowed me to reach the most people in the most emotional way. Okay. Then it'd have to be musician. That was like where most of my childhood was actually spent. I only really started filmmaking when I got to college. Yeah.
Very interesting.
That would be it, man. And if I could anything, I would love to be like Anderson .Paak, a drummer and a front man. I think I would have been a hell of a front man.
What's a front man? You sing?
That's like the front man is, well, typically the singer. They're like the guy, the main force of the band that, Chester Bennington was the great, and Mike Shinoda, the great frontman of Linkin Park, and they were both the singers. Anderson .Paak, though, is unique because, or like Phil Collins, they're unique because they were the drummers and also still the vocalist and the main person that of the band, right? They were the face of it. So I think that would have been it for sure. That was fun.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right. We're going to wrap this one up, guys. Stay tuned for next week. We're probably going to dig more into some of the cool stuff that's happening with our branding company. Can give you a sense of the journey that they're taking us through. First was the landscape analysis, giving us a sense of where we fit in sort of the broader landscape of post houses. Then going into our value proposition, what makes us different and better. And then we'll see what happens from there. So Stay tuned. We wish you all well. Work hard. Be nice. And as always, keep changing. Thank you for watching.